The day the Galactic Survey Authority discovered Earth, they sent a probe. It was a small machine, built to collect data and send it back across the stars. The probe entered Earth's atmosphere on a bright summer day and began its work. Within 6 hours, it had recorded enough information to terrify every species in the known galaxy. Ambassador Velfrix sat in her office on Coordination Station Prime, watching the footage with growing horror. Her 4 eyes blinked rapidly as she tried to process what she was seeing. On her screen, a pack of gray creatures chased down a large herbivore across an open plain. They worked together with perfect coordination, cutting off escape routes, taking turns to tire their prey. When the hunt ended, the footage switched to an ocean view where something massive and gray burst from the water, rows of teeth gleaming in the sunlight. "Computer," Velfrix said, her voice shaking slightly. "How many apex predators does this world contain?" Current count stands at 473 distinct species classified as apex predators across various biomes. The computer replied. This number does not include ambush predators, venomous species, or parasitic organisms. Velfrix pressed a button on her desk. "Get me the council. All of them, now." The emergency session lasted 14 hours. Representatives from 62 spacefaring species watched the probe's footage in stunned silence. They saw creatures with massive jaws that could crush bone. They saw flying predators with talons like knives. They saw swimming hunters that could sense blood from great distances. They saw tiny insects that swarmed in millions, capable of stripping flesh from bone in minutes. But what disturbed them most was not the predators. It was the prey. "The herbivores on this world are also dangerous," the chief xenobiologist explained, highlighting a creature the probe had classified as a hippopotamus. This animal kills more of the dominant species than most predators combined. It is territorial, aggressive, and can move faster than our standard ground vehicles. "What about the dominant species?" someone asked. "Surely they live in protected environments. Underground, perhaps?" The xenobiologist's face grew pale. "No, they live everywhere. Every continent, every climate zone. They swim in oceans filled with predators. They build homes in jungles filled with venomous creatures. They live alongside animals that could kill them without effort." The probe had captured footage of the dominant species, too. They called themselves humans. They had no natural weapons, no armor, no venom. They were soft, slow, and relatively weak compared to the creatures around them. By all logic, they should have gone extinct millions of years ago. Yet there they were. Billions of them, thriving. Velfrix stood up and addressed the council. "I move that we classify this world as a Class 7 hazardous planet. Full quarantine. No contact under any circumstances." The vote was unanimous. For the next 300 standard years, Earth sat in the Galactic Registry with a red warning symbol next to its name. Ships were programmed to avoid its solar system entirely. The warning message was clear and direct. Planet contains aggressive wildlife incompatible with galactic civilization. Native dominant species presumed hostile. Do not approach. Observation drones continued to monitor from a safe distance. They sent back regular reports that only confirmed the Council's fears. The humans did not seem to be getting any safer. If anything, they were expanding. They built larger cities, crossed their oceans, and eventually began sending primitive rockets into space. They will destroy themselves, many Council members predicted. A species that aggressive cannot achieve lasting civilization. But the humans did not destroy themselves. They kept building, kept growing, kept reaching upward toward the stars. Velfrix watched it all from her office. She had been promoted several times over the centuries, and now she served as the Council's senior ambassador. She had seen many species rise and fall. She had witnessed first contact events that went well and others that ended in disaster. But something about the humans bothered her in ways she could not explain. It was not their survival. Many species survived dangerous worlds. It was something in the way they lived. The drone showed humans walking through environments that should have killed them. They swam in waters filled with predators. They climbed mountains where the air itself was dangerous. They seemed to seek out danger rather than avoid it. They are insane, Velthrix muttered to herself one evening as she reviewed the latest drone footage. An entire species of madness. The footage showed a human approaching one of the apex predators, the gray pack hunters that had so disturbed her centuries ago. Velthrix expected to witness a death. Instead, she watched the human reach out and touch the creature. The predator did not attack. It wagged its tail. It licked the human's face. Velthrix froze the image and stared at it for a long time. "Computer," she said slowly, "search all drone footage for similar interactions between humans and predator species." The results took several minutes to compile. When they appeared on her screen, Velthrix felt something she had not experienced in over 200 years of diplomatic service. She felt genuine fear. The humans were not avoiding the dangerous creatures on their world. They were living with them, in their homes. By choice. Before she could process this information, an alarm sounded across the station. A vessel had appeared at the edge of council space. It was small, primitive by galactic standards, but unmistakably artificial. And it was broadcasting a message on all frequencies. "This is the Earth vessel Horizon. We come in peace. We wish to establish contact with any intelligent species who can receive this message. We bring gifts and hope for friendship." Velthrix stood at her window, watching the distant point of light that was humanity's first interstellar ship. 300 years of quarantine. 300 years of warnings. All of it was about to become meaningless. The humans were coming, and they were bringing gifts. She did not know yet what those gifts would be. She did not know that her entire understanding of humanity was about to shatter. She did not know that within one standard year, she would have a creature called a cat sleeping on her desk and demanding food at inconvenient hours. All she knew, standing at that window, was that the galaxy was about to change forever. She was right, but not in any way she could have predicted. Station Commander Yrixa had prepared for this moment his entire career. First contact with a new species was the most important event any station commander could experience. He had studied the protocols for years. He had run simulations hundreds of times. He knew exactly what to do. None of his training had prepared him for what actually happened. Human ship docked at Base 7 on what the humans apparently called a Tuesday. Yrixa had assembled his best security team, all wearing full hazmat protection. Medical teams stood ready with quarantine equipment. Weapons were charged but hidden as per diplomatic protocol. Everything was perfect. The airlock opened with a hiss of equalizing pressure. A golden creature bounded out before any human appeared. It had 4 legs, a long tail that moved rapidly back and forth, and a face that seemed to be smiling. It ran directly toward the security team and began jumping at them, trying to lick their face shields. "Hostile contact," one guard shouted, raising his weapon. "No, wait." A human voice called out. A female human emerged from the airlock, moving quickly. "Captain Biscuit, come here. Bad boy." "Sorry about that. He gets excited meeting new people." Yrixa watched in confusion as the human grabbed the golden creature and pulled it back. The creature did not resist. It sat down obediently, tail still moving rapidly against the floor, tongue hanging out of its mouth. "Is that creature dangerous?" Yrixa asked carefully. The human looked down at the animal, then back at Yrixa. She seemed puzzled by the question. "Captain Biscuit?" "No, He's a golden retriever. He's the friendliest dog on the ship. Maybe too friendly. Would you like to pet him? Rixa took a step backward. His security team tightened their formation. Our records indicate the creature is descended from pack predators classified as threat level 6. You mean wolves? The human laughed. It was a strange sound, but Eurix's translator indicated it meant amusement rather than aggression. I mean, technically yes, but that was like 15,000 years ago. Dogs are pets now, companions, family members. More humans emerged from the airlock. Each one seemed to be carrying or accompanied by some kind of creature. Eurix's scanner went wild, trying to classify them all. Small furry mammals, feathered creatures in cages, aquatic species in portable tanks. One human had a scaled creature wrapped around her arm. Is that venomous? A security guard asked, pointing at the scaled animal. This is Noodles, the human said, stroking the creature's head. She is a ball python. Very gentle. Want to hold her? The guard declined firmly. The human delegation's leader stepped forward. He was an older male with gray hair and kind eyes. He introduced himself as Ambassador Chun and apologized for any confusion. We thought you might like to see some of Earth's animals, he explained. They are cultural gifts, signs of friendship. On Earth, sharing our animal companions is one of the highest honors we can offer. Eurixa did not know how to respond. In all his years of diplomatic training, no one had ever suggested that a species might bring dangerous wildlife as friendship gifts. Perhaps we should move to the conference room, he said finally. We have much to discuss. The conference room had been prepared with great care. Translators were tested and working. Recording devices captured everything for the council archives. Refreshments appropriate for carbon-based life forms had been provided. It was a perfect diplomatic setting. Within 10 minutes, it had turned into chaos. The golden creature, Captain Biscuit, had somehow escaped his handler and was now being chased around the room by 3 security guards. A small furred creature the humans called a cat had climbed to the top of the ventilation system and refused to come down. The feathered creatures were making loud noises that the translator could not process. And Ambassador Chun was calmly trying to explain the concept of pets while offering Rixa something called a hamster. It fits in your hand, Chun said, holding out the small fluffy creature. They are very popular with children on Earth. Very easy to care for. Just needs food, water, and a wheel to run on. Eurixa stared at the tiny animal. It had small dark eyes and a twitching nose. It did not look dangerous. But then again, nothing the humans had brought looked dangerous. That was what worried him most. Ambassador Chun, Eurixa said carefully, I must ask directly. Your world is classified as one of the most dangerous in the known galaxy. Yet you bring these creatures here as if they are harmless toys. How is this possible? Chun considered the question for a moment. He set the hamster down gently and sat across from Eurixa. The chaos continued around them, but both leaders ignored it. Commander, Chun said, I think there has been a misunderstanding. You see Earth as a dangerous world. You see our animals as threats. But that is not how we see them at all. To us, they are partners. They are friends. They are family. Even the predators? Especially the predators. Chun smiled and gestured toward Captain Biscuit, who had finally been caught and was now happily accepting treats from a confused security guard. Wolves were dangerous, yes. They hunted in packs. They killed our livestock. They sometimes killed us. But instead of simply killing them all, our ancestors had a different idea. They thought, what if we could work together? What if we could be partners instead of enemies? And it worked? It took thousands of years. But yes, it worked. We gave them food and shelter. They gave us loyalty and protection. Over time, they changed. We changed. We became better together than either of us could be alone. Urixa watched the security guard petting Captain Biscuit. The animal's tail was moving so fast it was almost a blur. The guard, despite his training, was starting to smile beneath his helmet. We did not conquer our world by being the strongest or the fastest, Chun continued. We survived because we learned to make friends. We made friends with wolves and they became dogs. We made friends with wild cats and they became house cats. We made friends with wild horses and they carried us across continents. You befriended everything? We tried to befriend everything. We were not always successful. Some animals could not be tamed. Some partnerships did not work. But we never stopped trying. It is in our nature to reach out, to connect, to form bonds. Chun stood and walked to where his colleagues had finally managed to gather all the animals. 47 species in total, each one representing thousands of years of human effort and care. These are not just gifts, Chun said. They are proof of who we are. We are not the monsters your records suggest. We are the species that looked at the most dangerous creatures on our world and said, I want to be your friend. Urixa was silent for a long moment. Then he did something that surprised everyone, including himself. He removed his helmet and knelt down next to Captain Biscuit. How do I pet it? He asked. Ambassador Chun smiled. Just scratch behind his ears. He loves that. Urixa reached out carefully and touched the golden fur. It was soft and warm. The creature leaned into his touch and made a sound of contentment. For the first time in 300 years of quarantine, a member of the council had made physical contact with an Earth species. It would not be the last. The Coordination Council demanded a full report. They wanted to understand exactly what the humans had brought with them, where these creatures came from, and how they had been changed. The chief xenobiologist, a respected scientist named Dr. Morthax, was assigned to create this report. It took him 3 weeks. When he finally presented his findings, 4 council members had to leave the room. 2 others required medical attention. Dr. Morthax stood before the council chamber with his data screens floating around him. He looked tired. He had not slept properly since beginning his research. The things he had learned kept him awake at night. Honored council members, he began. What I am about to present will challenge everything we believe about dangerous wildlife and the species that survive alongside it. The humans have not merely survived their death world. They have fundamentally altered it. He brought up his first image. It showed a wolf, teeth bared, eyes fierce. This is Canis lupus, the gray wolf. Our original assessment classified it as one of Earth's most dangerous pack predators. They hunt in coordinated groups, can run for hours without rest, and possess jaws capable of crushing bone. The image changed to show a small fluffy creature with floppy ears and a pushed-in face. This is a Pekingese. It weighs approximately 4 kilograms. It requires regular grooming and cannot breathe properly due to its facial structure. It is also, genetically speaking, a wolf. Murmurs spread through the chamber. The humans took the wolf and, over 15,000 years of selective breeding, created over 400 distinct varieties. Some remained large and strong, used for protection and herding. Others became small enough to carry in bags. All of them share one common trait: absolute loyalty to humans. Dr. Morthax moved to his next subject. The image showed a small striped feline with sharp teeth and retractable claws. Felis silvestris, the wildcat, a solitary ambush predator. It hunts primarily at dawn and dusk. It kills for pleasure as well as food. It is territorial, aggressive, and virtually impossible to approach in the wild. The next image showed a fat orange cat lying on its back in a sunbeam, belly exposed. Felis caudus, the domestic cat. It now lives in approximately 30% of human households. Humans provide it with food, shelter, and something called a scratching post. In exchange, the cat provides companionship and occasionally brings dead animals as gifts. The cat domesticated itself, Dr. Morthax added. Humans did not seek it out. Cats simply decided that living with humans was preferable to living alone. They chose this partnership. A council member raised a tentacle. Are you saying the predator voluntarily surrendered its independence? I am saying it recognized a good opportunity. Humans stored grain. Grain attracted rodents. Cats hunted rodents. It was a mutually beneficial arrangement. Over time, the relationship evolved into something deeper. Humans began to care for cats as family members. Cats began to show affection in return. Dr. Morthax continued through his catalog. He showed them cattle, massive creatures with horns that could kill, now bred for milk and meat. He showed them horses, prey animals that could shatter skulls with their kicks, now ridden by humans for sport and transportation. He showed them chickens, descended from small feathered dinosaurs, now providing eggs by the billions. But the entry that caused the most disruption was for Apis mellifera, the honeybee. This creature flies in swarms of up to 60,000 individuals, Dr. Morthax explained. It possesses a venomous stinger. It will attack any perceived threat to its colony without hesitation. Multiple stings can kill even a healthy adult human. He paused. Humans keep them in wooden boxes in their gardens. They harvest their secretions and put it on bread. Council of Rethkai stood up abruptly. You expect us to believe that humans voluntarily surround themselves with thousands of venomous flying insects? I have confirmed footage. Humans wear special suits to protect themselves, but many work with bees wearing minimal protection. They call it beekeeping. It is considered a relaxing hobby. The counselor sat back down heavily. The catalog continued. Pigs, intelligent omnivores capable of eating almost anything, including human remains, domesticated for meat. Goats, stubborn animals that could climb nearly vertical surfaces and ate plants toxic to most species, kept for milk and companionship. Rabbits, prey animals that bred so quickly they could overrun ecosystems. Now raised as pets and shown in competitions. There were ferrets, small predators that humans let run through their homes for entertainment. There were parrots, flying creatures that humans taught to speak. There were fish, kept in glass boxes purely for decoration. There were even spiders, which some humans kept as pets despite their venomous bites. The pattern is consistent across all 47 species, Dr. Morthax concluded. Humans identify a creature, regardless of how dangerous it might be. They study it. They learn its behaviors, its needs, its weaknesses, and then they form a partnership with it. Sometimes this takes generations. Sometimes it happens within a single human lifetime. But the result is always the same. A wild, dangerous creature becomes a companion. Ambassador Velthrix, who had been silent throughout the presentation, finally spoke. Doctor, in your professional opinion, why do they do this? What drives them to seek connection with creatures that could kill them? Dr. Morthax was quiet for a moment. He had asked himself this question many times over the past 3 weeks. He had analyzed the data from every angle. He had consulted with psychologists, behaviorists, and historians. And he had reached a conclusion that still amazed him. Loneliness, he said simply. Humans are social creatures. They evolved in small groups on a dangerous world. They needed allies to survive. But more than that, they needed companionship. They needed to love and be loved. And when there were no other humans nearby, they found other creatures to fill that need. He brought up one final image. It showed a human child sleeping in a bed, curled around a large dog. Both were peaceful. Both looked content. "They do not see dangerous animals," Dr. Morthax said. "They see potential friends. They see family waiting to be found. And they will pursue that connection regardless of the risk, because to them, a life without such bonds is not worth living." The council chamber was silent for a long time after the presentation ended. Finally, Counselor Eurixa spoke. He had been the first to pet Captain Biscuit. He had spent considerable time with the human delegation since their arrival. He had begun to understand them in ways his colleagues had not. "We have been looking at this situation incorrectly," he said. "We classified Earth as dangerous because of its wildlife. We assumed the humans survived despite their environment. But that is backwards. The humans did not survive despite their wildlife. They survived because of it. Their partnerships with these creatures gave them advantages no other species has achieved." He stood and looked around the chamber. "Dogs guard their homes. Cats control vermin. Horses provide transportation. Cattle provide food. Bees provide sweeteners and pollinate their crops. Every dangerous animal on their world became a tool, a partner, an ally. They turned threats into resources. They turned enemies into friends." He paused. "And now they offer to do the same for us." The implications hung in the air. The humans were not just bringing pets. They were bringing 15,000 years of domestication expertise. They were offering to share the secrets that had helped them conquer their death world. The question was whether the galaxy was ready to accept. 5 years had passed since the human ship Horizon first appeared at Coordination Station 12. In that time, the galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. Ambassador Velfric sat in her office, now decorated with soft beds, scratching posts, and a variety of toys. 3 cats lounged in various sunny spots around the room. A golden retriever named Ambassador Sunshine slept at her feet. On her desk, a small aquarium held colorful fish that she found strangely soothing to watch. She was reading the final draft of a document that would change galactic policy forever. It had taken 2 years of debate, 3 special committees, and more arguments than she could count. But finally, it was ready. The Galactic Survey Authority was officially reclassifying Earth. The old entry had been simple and terrifying. Class 7 Hazardous World contains aggressive wildlife incompatible with galactic civilization. Native dominant species presumed hostile. Do not approach. The new entry was considerably different. Earth, origin world of humanity. Previous danger classification revoked. Note: humans do not avoid dangerous fauna. Humans adopt dangerous fauna. They have demonstrated this ability with native Earth species and have successfully begun domestication programs on 3 colony worlds. Recommend careful observation when introducing humans to any ecosystem, as they will attempt to befriend any creature they encounter regardless of perceived threat. Level. Velthric signed her approval and sent the document forward for final ratification. She thought about how far they had come. 5 years ago, the very idea of living with Earth animals had seemed insane. Now they were everywhere. Dogs served as therapy animals on hundreds of stations. Cats had somehow managed to colonize nearly every human-occupied structure in council space, whether invited or not. Koi ponds had become status symbols among the Milom elite. And the Kepler stalkers, now officially renamed Keppies, were being bred as companions on 3 worlds. The humans had not forced any of this. They had simply offered their animals as gifts, demonstrated proper care, and let nature take its course. Species that had never considered keeping pets suddenly could not imagine life without them. The bond between human and animal turned out to be something universal, something that crossed all barriers of biology and culture. A chime at her door interrupted her thoughts. She called for entry and watched as Dr. Morthax walked in, looking considerably older than he had 5 years ago. He was accompanied by a small creature the humans called a hamster, sitting on his shoulder. "Ambassador," he said, sitting down across from her. "I wanted to discuss the final section of my report before it goes to the archives." Velthrix nodded. "Of course. What concerns you?" Dr. Morthax pulled out his datapad and scrolled through pages of research. "I have spent 5 years studying this phenomenon. I have documented 47 Earth species and 12 alien species currently undergoing domestication programs. I have interviewed thousands of individuals across dozens of cultures, and I still cannot fully explain what the humans do." "What do you mean?" "The science is clear," he said. "Selective breeding, behavioral conditioning, consistent positive reinforcement. These are the techniques humans use. Any species could theoretically apply them, but no species ever has. Not like this." He set down his datapad and looked at her with tired eyes. "Other species have tamed animals for work. We have used them for food. We have studied them for science. But we never loved them. We never looked at a dangerous predator and thought, I want this creature to be my friend. I want it to sleep in my home and eat from my hand and be part of my family. And you find this disturbing? I find it remarkable." He shook his head slowly. The humans were alone on their world for millions of years. They had no other intelligent species to talk to share with, to love. So they created companions from the creatures around them. They looked at wolves and saw loyal friends. They looked at wildcats and saw affectionate partners. They looked at massive herbivores and saw gentle giants. The hamster on his shoulder squeaked and nuzzled his ear. He reached up absently and stroked its tiny head. "They taught us something important," he continued. "They taught us that intelligence is not the only measure of worth. That creatures without language can still offer love. That danger is not always an obstacle, but sometimes an invitation." Ambassador Sunshine lifted her head from her paws and looked at Dr. Morthax with warm brown eyes. He smiled and leaned down to pet her. "I have a confession," he said quietly. "When I first began this research, I thought the humans were foolish, reckless, perhaps even mentally disturbed. I could not understand why any rational species would choose to live with creatures that could harm them. And now? Now I have a hamster named Professor Whiskers who sleeps in my pocket and makes me smile every single day." He laughed softly. "Now I understand that the humans are not foolish at all. They are wise in a way we never considered. They understood something that took us 5 years to learn." "Which is?" Dr. Morthax stood and walked to the window. Outside, the stars stretched endlessly into the darkness. Somewhere out there, humans were meeting new species, exploring new worlds, and probably trying to pet whatever dangerous creatures they encountered. "Life is better when you share it," he said simply. "Even with creatures that cannot understand your words. Even with animals that might hurt you. Even with species so different from yourself, the communication seems impossible. The connection itself has value. The love itself is worth the risk." He turned back to face her. "That is my conclusion, Ambassador. After 5 years of research, hundreds of interviews, and more data than any scientist could want, humans domesticate dangerous animals because they cannot stand to be alone. And in doing so, they have enriched not just their own lives, but the entire galaxy." Velthrix was quiet for a long moment. She looked at Ambassador Sunshine, at the cats lounging in sunbeams, at the fish swimming peaceful circles in their tank. 5 years ago, she would have considered all of this bizarre at best, dangerous at worst. Now she could not imagine her life any other way. "Do you know what I find most remarkable?" she finally said. "The humans keep apologizing. They think they are imposing on us. They think we are doing them a favor by accepting their animals. They have no idea what they have given us. She stood and walked to Dr. Morthax, reaching out to gently touch Professor Whiskers. The tiny creature sniffed her finger and accepted the attention without fear. "They taught us how to love," she said. "They taught us how to form bonds that transcend reason and language and species. They taught us that the galaxy does not have to be cold and lonely and dangerous. It can be warm. It can be full of connection. It can be home." She returned to her desk and picked up the reclassification document one final time. The old warning label glowed on her screen, waiting to be replaced. "Class 7 Hazardous World," she read aloud. "Contains aggressive wildlife." She smiled and pressed the button to confirm the update. "Not anymore," she said quietly. "Now it contains friends." Ambassador Sunshine patted over and laid her head in Velthrix's lap. The ambassador scratched behind her ears, just the way Captain Biscuit had taught her. All those years ago, the dog wagged her tail. Somewhere across the galaxy, humans were probably trying to befriend something new. Something with teeth and claws and the potential to kill. Something that any sensible species would avoid at all costs. Velthrix hoped they succeeded. The galaxy could always use more friends. She looked out at the stars, at the endless darkness that suddenly seemed a little less empty, and she understood at last why the humans had come. They had not come to conquer or to trade or to study. They had come because they were lonely. And now, none of them would ever have to be lonely again. The council remained divided. Some members believed the humans were genuine in their offers of friendship. Others suspected a trick, some hidden agenda behind the gifts of domesticated creatures. A third group simply could not accept that any species would willingly live with animals that could harm them. Council of Rethkai led the skeptics. His species had evolved on a cold, barren world with few native animals. The concept of keeping creatures for companionship rather than food was foreign to him. The idea of living alongside predators seemed like insanity. "These specimens you have brought are clearly exceptional," he argued during one session. "You have selected the most docile examples, trained over many generations specifically for this mission. The average human cannot possibly interact with dangerous fauna in this manner." Ambassador Chun smiled patiently. He had faced this skepticism for weeks. He understood that extraordinary claims required extraordinary proof. "Would you like a demonstration?" he offered. "We could introduce domestic animals to council species on a trial basis. You could observe the results directly." Rethkai was about to refuse, but Councilor Urixa spoke first. "I think that is an excellent idea. I volunteer my species to participate." The demonstration began immediately. Within 2 weeks, the first emotional support animals were assigned to Urixa citizens working in high-stress diplomatic positions. They were given dogs, specifically a breed called corgis. These were small animals with short legs, long bodies, and extremely friendly personalities. The results exceeded all expectations. Rixa diplomats reported reduced stress levels. They slept better. They made clearer decisions. They found themselves looking forward to returning home at the end of each work cycle because something was waiting for them. Something that was genuinely happy to see them. Councilor Urixa himself adopted a corgi named Ambassador Puddles. He had not intended to become attached. He had accepted the animal purely for scientific observation. But within days, he found himself talking to Puddles about his problems, taking Puddles for walks around the station, and becoming genuinely upset when Puddles seemed sad. "I do not understand it," he confessed to Ambassador Chun one evening. "This creature provides no practical benefit. It requires food, attention, and care. It sheds fur everywhere. It makes noise at inconvenient times. And yet, I cannot imagine my life without it now." Chun nodded. "That is exactly how we feel about our animals. They give us something that is hard to define, but impossible to replace. Purpose, connection, unconditional love. Unconditional love? Puddles does not care about your political positions. Puddles does not judge your decisions. Puddles simply loves you because you are you. For humans, and apparently for your species as well, that kind of acceptance is incredibly valuable. The program expanded rapidly. The aquatic Milam discovered that earthfish called koi could be bred in beautiful colors and patterns. Their underwater cities soon featured elaborate koi ponds. The crystalline shard kind found that cats would lie on their warm surfaces for hours, providing a strange but pleasant sensation they had never experienced before. Even the isolationist Rethkai, despite their leader's skepticism, began requesting what the humans called therapy ferrets. But the true test came 6 months later. On a world called Kepler-442b. Kepler-442b was a colony world that had been abandoned twice. The native predator species, officially classified as Kepler stalkers, had made settlement impossible. These creatures were 2 meters tall, covered in scales, with multiple rows of teeth and claws that could tear through standard armor. They hunted in pairs and showed signs of primitive intelligence. Every attempt to establish a permanent colony had failed within months. When a human colony ship requested permission to settle on Kepler-442b, the Council denied it immediately. The world was too dangerous. Humans would be killed. The humans went anyway. Ambassador Chen apologized but explained that the colonists were independent settlers, not government representatives. They had made their own decision. All he could promise was to provide regular updates on their situation. The first report came after 1 month. The colony was established. There had been several stalker sightings, but no attacks. The humans were studying the creatures carefully. The second report came after 3 months. Contact had been made. A young female stalker, apparently separated from her pack, had approached the colony. Instead of attacking, she had sniffed the perimeter fence and made curious sounds. The colonists had offered food. She had accepted. The third report came after 5 months. It included video footage that the Council watched in stunned silence. The footage showed human children playing in an open field. Running alongside them were 4 Kepler stalkers. The creatures moved carefully, adjusting their speed to match the children. When one child fell, a stalker nudged her gently back to her feet. When another child threw a ball, a stalker chased it and brought it back. "We are calling them Keppies," the colony leader said in the report. "The first generation is still somewhat wild, but they are learning. The young ones born in captivity are much more docile. We expect full domestication within 3 to 4 generations. The children love them." Council of Rethkai demanded an independent investigation. Council observers were sent to verify the footage. They returned with even more remarkable evidence. The colonists had developed a complete domestication program. They had identified the stalkers' social structure, their dietary needs, their breeding patterns. They had established trust through consistent feeding and non-threatening behavior. They had begun selective breeding, choosing the calmest individuals to produce offspring. "It is exactly what they did on Earth," the lead observer reported. "They are following the same methods they used to domesticate wolves 15,000 years ago. And it is working." The Kepler stalkers are responding to human contact in ways our scientists believed impossible. One particular scene from the observer's report became famous across the galaxy. It showed a human toddler, barely old enough to walk, approaching a fully grown Kepler stalker. The creature was 3 times the child's height and could have killed her with a single bite. Instead, it lowered its massive head and let the child pet its snout. The child giggled and said, "Good Cappy," in her small voice. The creature's tail moved slowly back and forth. When the observers returned, they brought a gift from the colonists. It was a young Kepler stalker, only 6 months old, already socialized to accept contact from non-human species. They named her Hope. Council of Rethkai refused to approach Hope at first. He watched from a distance as other council members carefully interacted with her. She was surprisingly gentle for a creature that had terrified colonists for decades. She responded to simple commands. She seemed to enjoy having her scales scratched. On the third day, Hope escaped her enclosure and wandered the station. Security teams mobilized immediately, prepared for violence. They found her in Rethkai's quarters, curled up on his heating pad, fast asleep. Rethkai stood in the doorway, staring at the creature that had invaded his home. She opened one eye, saw him, and made a soft rumbling sound. Then she closed her eye and went back to sleep. "She likes warmth," Ambassador Chun said, appearing behind Rethkai. "Your species runs at a higher temperature than most. She probably thinks you are comfortable." Rethkai did not respond. He walked slowly into his quarters and sat down in his chair, watching Hope sleep. "I still do not understand how they do it," he said finally. "How do humans look at a creature designed to kill and see a potential companion?" Chun considered the question. "Perhaps because we were once creatures designed to kill as well. We had to learn to be different. We had to choose cooperation over conflict. And once we made that choice for ourselves, we started making it for others too." Hope stirred, stretched, and yawned, revealing rows of teeth that could crush bone. Then she walked over to Rethkai and placed her head on his leg. He reached down and touched her scales. They were warm and smooth. "I suppose," he said quietly, "I could get used to this." Ambassador Chun smiled. "They always say that at first.